The World Eaters, the 12th Legion, were the hounds of war that brought death as beasts, butchers, and madmen. The merest whisper that the World Eaters were going to be deployed would quell rebellions and send armies to flight in terror. Hello, and welcome to this painting video. In this video, we're going to show you how to paint your Legionnaire in the colors of the World Eaters. So grab those paintbrushes, shake those paint pots, and let's get started. So the first thing that we need to do is undercoat the model, and as you can see here, we've used Corax White Spray. What this will do will allow us to go straight into the first aspect of the video, which is to use Corax White base paint and applying that all over the model. The reason for this is that the spray has a slightly different finish to the base paint, and if we make any mistakes later on, it will be very easy for us to tidy up. So what I need to do is get some Corax White onto my palette, get a little bit more, get some water, just thin it out. Yeah, I'm happy with that. And then just start applying that all over the model. Don't worry about being super neat at this point because you will be painting over all the bits later. Once it's dry, just remember to do a second thin coat for good coverage. And with that stage complete, we now need to move on to doing the rest of the base paints. And for this, we could be using Corvus Black for the black details, Elatok Blue for the blue details, Lupercal Green for the lenses, and then moving into the metallics, we're going to be using Iron Hand Steel, and finally Balthazar Gold. So the first thing I need to do is get some Corvus Black onto my palette. There, a couple of dollops, a little bit more. Get some water, thin it out. Get my brush to a nice sharp point. And we start applying it all over the bolt gun casing, and when that's done, do the model's ribbings as well as the pipes. Just be careful when you're going around the white armor. If you do make a mistake, just tidy up using Corax White. With the black applied, we now need to move on to using Elatok Blue. For this, we're going to look to tie into that World Eater scheme. So it's going to be on the shoulder pads, the backpack, as well as the belt buckle. With the blue picked out, the next thing to do is to use Lupercal Green and apply that to the eye lenses. Just take your time when doing this, and if you make any mistakes, tidy up with Corax White. So with the lenses picked out, the next thing to do is to do the silver metallic details. And for this, we're going to be focusing on the bolt gun, some details on the helmet, as well as the backpack. Now that the silver metallics are done, I'm going to pick out all the bronze details using Balthazar Gold. And with that stage complete, all our base paints have been applied. The next thing that we need to do is to change our water because we don't want to get any of those metallic flakes into the rest of our paint. After you've done that, we're going to move on to applying the shades and contrasts. And for this, we're going to be using Skeleton Horde for the white armor, Cygor Brown for the silver metallics. Both of these paints will be thinned down with contrast medium. Once we've done with that, we're going to move on to Seraphim Sepia for the bronze metallics, and finally non-oil for the gun casing. So the first thing I need to do is get some contrast medium onto my palette. So that's one dollop. We're going to look for about 2 dollops here. Clean my brush, get some Skeleton Horde, apply that in. Yeah, that's nice. I'm going to clean my brush again because I want to be able to control how much I'm taking onto my bristles. And then we're going to just start to run that into the recesses of the white armor. If you make any mistakes, just tidy up using Corax White. And with the Skeleton Horde applied, we have a nice underlayer of grime for the white armor. The next thing that we need to do is use Cygor Brown, thin down with contrast medium, and start putting that all over the silver metallics. By applying the Cygor Brown, it really adds to the nice weathered grime look that we're going for with the World Eaters. With that stage complete, the next thing that we need to do is apply Seraphim Sepia over the bronze metallics. Now that the Seraphim Sepia has been applied, I'm going to use non-oil and put that all over the gun casing. When that's done, I'm also going to drop it into the recesses of the blue armor. And with that stage complete, we now need to move on to the highlights. And for this, we're going to be using Cyberite green and Gauss-Blaster green for the lenses, with a final dot highlight of white scar, which we'll also use to edge highlight the white armor. Following that, we're going to move on to Hoeth blue and Fenrisian gray to highlight the blue armor. So what I need to do is get some Cyberite green onto my palette. A little bit more. Some water, thin it out. More. And then roll my brush to a nice sharp point. And what we're looking to do is just to highlight the lower edge of the lens. With that highlight applied, we're now going to use Gauss-Blaster green to highlight the inner corner of the lens. With that stage complete, we now need to use white scar to add a little dot highlight in the dark section of the lens. Once that's done, use the white scar to start edge highlighting the white armor. When doing this, you can add lots of little scratches in order to help weather the armor as well. When doing the scratches, just drag it off from the edge, just like that. With the white armor now fully highlighted, the next thing to do is to use Hoeth blue and highlight the blue armor panels. We're going to do this as an edge highlight using the side of the brush. And with that first stage of highlight complete on the blue armor, you can see I've added scratches and chipping just like as the white. We're now going to use Fenrisian gray to pick out the sharpest edges. And with that stage complete, we now need to move on to the chipping. And for this, we're going to be using Mechanica Standard Grey for the white armor, Corvus Black for the blue armor, Runefang Steel for the gun casing as well as the silver details, then Herschut Copper for the bronze details. So the first thing I'm going to do is get some Mechanica Standard Grey onto my palette. Just over there. Get a little bit of water, thin it down. Yeah, happy with that. And then start getting my brush to a nice sharp point. So what we're looking to do here is where you see I've got these scratches on the white armor, we're just going to put a little bit of Mechanica Standard Grey just above it. What this will do is just to help give some definition to the chipping. So we've got some there, then like that. Then on the actual edges, you're looking just to put it in the center of your edge highlight. You can see it starts to break up the armor quite nicely. With the chipping done on the white armor, we're now going to move on to the chipping on the blue. And for this, we're using Corvus Black. The same as the white, we're just putting it above where the scratches are. With the blue armor fully chipped, we're now going to move on to using Runefang Steel to stipple onto the gun casing, as well as edge highlight all the silver metallics. With the silver metallics picked out, we now need to move on to the bronze metallics, and for this we're going to be using Herschut Copper. And with that stage complete, the armor is now fully highlighted. The next thing that we need to do is add some gory details, because where would our world eater be if he wasn't festooned in the blood of his enemies? And for this, we're going to be using blood for the blood god. So what I need to do is get some blood for the blood god onto the palette. I'll go there, because I just want to control how much I've got onto my brush. And then we're just going to start applying that all over the armor. So what you're going to see here, I'm going to do a nice little technique. If you put it across like that, and then just start having the blood dripping down. There. And then what we're going to do as well is just break that up with little blood spatters everywhere else. So take your time when doing this and just go around the armor, just adding sections to it. If you want to add any extra depth to your blood, just wait for it to dry and add some extra dots into the center of the blood. And then I'm going to put it all over his fists because he's introduced someone to the meaning of imperial compliance. With the blood spatter applied, our World Eater is now ready to be based, and for this we're going to be using Armageddon Dunes. Once that's dry, we're then going to wash it with Seraphim Sepia. So what we need to do is get some Armageddon Dunes onto our texture tool, and for this I'm using the large flat side of the tool, and then just applying it onto the base. Once it's on the base, I'm then going to use the small side of the texture tool to start pushing it around the boots. Don't worry too much if you get some on the boots, it just helps to tie the model in with the base. Now that the Armageddon Dunes is dry, the next thing to do is to apply Seraphim Sepia all over it. With the wash now dry, the next thing that we need to do is to highlight, and for this we're going to be using a Shabti bone as a dry brush and highlighting that all over the texture of the base. So what I need to do is get some Shabti bone onto my dry brush and then try and get off as much of it as I can. And then just start gently applying that over the raised areas of the texture. And there we go, the base is now fully highlighted. The last thing that we need to do is to tie the model in with the base, and for this we're going to be using Xandri dust and water it down with a lot of water into a wash consistency. Then we're going to push it into the recesses of the lower armor and all over the feet. So what we need to do is get some Xandri dust onto my palette. A little bit more. And just get quite a lot of water here, so just soaking it up. We want to make it into a wash consistency. A little bit more. Yeah, that's good there. Just clean the brush off because you want to be able to control how much you have. With that. And then what we're looking to do is to push it into the recesses like that. And just start dragging it down. So what this does is then help to tie the model in with the base. And there we are, the base is now done. All that's left to do is to paint a rim in a color that matches the rest of your army. For this, we've used Steel Legion Drab. With the base completed and the rim painted, our World Eater is ready to maim and burn all those who stand before him. So there are just a couple of things to remember. When highlighting the armor, take your time, but if you make any mistakes, don't worry because you can easily just turn those into scratches and chipping like what we showed you. Also, when you're finished with the metallics, don't forget to change out your water pot because you don't want to contaminate the rest of your paints. Well, we hope you've enjoyed this video and we hope you enjoy painting your own World Eaters, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Goodbye.